Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am Brandon. If my parents could have let me walk in free agency, they would have Perna. Sorry, we're franchise tagging your sister. Good luck out there. Now, I think everyone is sick of hearing about all these damn quarterback trade rumors, so today I will focus on what's real. By speculating which top NFL players will actually hit free agency, just like the technology implemented to recreate the sound of a mummy,
it allowed them to produce a single sound.
I have tapped into every piece of technology available to determine who will actually hit the market. Which sounds like... Fuck the mummy. Okay, that's good sports. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for more dumb football videos. The Patreon Zoom meeting for all $10 patrons and all $10 YouTube members, that is tonight, Thursday. I put posts on Patreon and in the community tab for members, so please come join us for the Zoom hangout. It's a laugh. Also, don't forget my coffee company, BenchwarmerBrew.com. If you need some great coffee to put in your mouth and suckle down your throat. I'm assuming everyone here knows the basics of NFL free agency. Players who have contracts that have expired are now free to sign with whatever team they want as unrestricted free agents. Some of those unrestricted free agents may have the franchise tag placed on them by their current team, which guarantees them a top salary for the season and gives them and the team another year to hash out a long-term contract extension if that's in the plans. Right now, if you look up the top available free agents this offseason, you'll see a long list with a lot of sexy names on it. However, up to 32 of those guys may not hit free agency because of the use of the franchise tag, as every team is allowed to do it. Doesn't mean every team will use the tag. Today, I want to talk about basically the top 20 players from this list at NFL Trade Rumors and determine who I believe will actually become free agents and not have the tag placed on them within the next couple weeks based on what reading I've done. A few guys who may get tagged on this list from Field Yates are Packers wide receiver Davante Adams, Bengals safety Jessie Bates, Patriots corner J.C. Jackson, and Chiefs tackle Orlando Brown Jr. If Davante Adams hits free agency, he will be the big fish. But I don't think the Packers let him walk, and I don't think they use the tag because GM Brian Gutekunst said he doesn't like to use the tag. But I think Green Bay gets a deal or extension done with him, as I do for Rodgers, because Rodgers won't return without Adams. Now, in addition to those guys, I think Marcus Williams stays in New Orleans, Mike Williams stays with the Chargers, Randy Gregory stays in Dallas, and Jameis Winston returns to the Saints. So let's start with the first guy I think will hit free agency, Chandler Jones. Probably the most low-key future Hall of Famer in the NFL. Seriously, this is a guy with 107 sacks since he was drafted in 2012, which is why this image of a doll shows up when I searched his name. He's 19 sacks away from climbing into the top 20 all-time for sack leaders. Jones had 10.5 sacks last year, half of them coming in week 1, but he also had 26 QB hits, which was the second most of his career. You know who needs a pass rusher and has a lot of money to burn? That's right, my fucking team, the Broncos. And I think they'll give Chandler Jones a 2-year deal to line up opposite Bradley Chubb. Jones is a perfect fit in the 3-4, which the Broncos will continue to run with new defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. Ultimately, this could prove to be a DeMarcus Ware type signing for the Broncos, and Jones could unlock Chubb or perhaps Malik Reed on the other side. The other edge player to kind of watch is Hassan Reddick, currently of the Panthers, but he was Chandler Jones' teammate in Arizona in 2020. Reddick had 11 sacks for the Panthers and is projected to hit free agency. Teams will have to weigh his 1 year of great production, and he needs to go where I think he can be a pass rush specialist, because It's all he really does well. But I figured I'd mention him. Now, we got Carlton Davis, corner. This is the year we see a new Carlton. He's going to be darker, edgier. There's going to be less dancing and more action. Okay, sorry, I thought we were talking about the new Peacock original, Bel Air, which I have been dying to see. Let's talk about the real Carlton Davis. The free agent corner from the Buccaneers. Davis is probably the second best corner in free agency behind only J.C. Jackson, and I think J.C. Jackson stays in New England despite the disrespect he currently feels. Now, Davis is a big difference maker, and although he did miss 7 games last year, Tampa went 8-2 with him on the field. The market will be there despite a pretty extensive injury history, if only because there aren't a ton of great free agent corners this year. Ultimately, I think Davis takes the reverse Fresh Prince route and goes back to Philly, where the Eagles can pair him up with Darius Slay. Just don't start any fights on any basketball courts, Carlton, or you'll be punished by being sent to the nicest part of the country to live in a mansion with a butler. Then we got Terron Armstead. It's hard to predict anyone going back to the Saints, probably because they lost their legendary head coach, they don't have a clear-cut starting quarterback, and they have the financial solvency of Blockbuster Video. Now, Terron Armstead has been a top-tier tackle since 2014, and I think he'll want to go somewhere that will give him a competitive offer and an offer to compete for a Super Bowl. That's the Cincinnati Bengals, in my opinion, who have about $55 million in cap space. They're a rare team that has a glaring weakness and still just came off a chance to win the Super Bowl. They were in the dance. As long as he can keep himself upright, Armstead can keep Burrow upright for the 2022 season, and if they can hit on a draft pick, they'll have a chance to be better in the regular season next year, which is actually not that tall of a task for a team that made it to the Super Bowl. Word just got out that guard Brandon Scherf is done in Washington, so if I'm Cincy, I go after both guys. Then we got receiver Allen Robinson. Robinson has been cursed his entire career. He's a great wide receiver who's been stuck with the likes of Blake Bortles, Mitch Kissing Titties, Trubisky, and Justin Fields. His numbers were deflated last year. He doesn't think that's an accident, but I don't think that's going to fool anyone bidding for free agents. You could put 1988 Jerry Rice in that Bears offense, and he wouldn't get you more than 700 yards. So, who's got a clear need at wide receiver? Knowing his situation, I think Robinson might sacrifice a few dollars to play with the top-tier quarterback. Sadly, I think that could land him in Las Vegas, where he can put up huge numbers with Derek Carr and new head coach Josh McDaniels. He's probably watching Raiders games right now saying, shit, if some balding 5'5" white Make-A-Wish kid can put up 1,000 yards in that offense, imagine what I can do. Then we've got safety, Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu was previously the most annoying player on the Chiefs until, of course, we were introduced to all the people who share blood or a legal relation with Patrick Mahomes. That said, Mathieu is still playing at a very high level and is so versatile that he fits into just about any defense. Although the Chiefs will have to find someone to stand there with his arms up in the air every time Dan Sorensen gives up a touchdown. But let's put Tyrann on the Jets, a team that I think could seriously improve next season. Mathieu could prove to be the anti-Jamal Adams for New York, doing everything and matching up really well next to Marcus May. That said, those guys did have a Twitter beef back in 2019 that I pray has been resolved. Now the Cowboys have interesting decisions to make, including Dalton Schultz. You might be asking yourself, who the hell is Dalton Schultz? Well, unless you've been paying very close attention to the Dallas Cowboys, who are rarely televised, you might not be familiar with Schultz, a 6'5" tight end out of Stanford who put up 800 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Shit, just looking at him, you'd assume this guy played with Andrew Luck back in 2010. I think if Dallas uses the tag, they will use it on Randy Gregory because there are going to be many tight end options in free agency with other guys like Mike Gesicki, Zach Ertz, David Njoku, O.J. Howard, C.J. Uzomah, Gerald Everett, and Evan Ingram slated to test the market. So let's pair up Schultz with Andrew Luck's old team, the Indianapolis Colts. There's no indication whether or not Jack Doyle will retire or come back, and the Colts could probably use some help at tight end anyways, in addition to wide receiver and quarterback. As you might have noticed though, Schultz also rhymes with Colts, and that's more evidence than I really need that this deal will happen. Schultz outperformed his status as a 4th round pick and should earn himself a solid 4-year deal. Then we got my man, Von Miller. Von Miller may be the biggest mystery in free agency. There is a chance that the Rams franchise tag him, especially if this run it back mantra is real. I have no idea how the Rams get their salary cap to work, but I assume it involves a lot of salary massaging to get another happy ending in LA. Don't get it twisted though, Aaron Donald may have gotten the most credit, and he deserves a lot, but the Rams don't win the Super Bowl and probably don't even get there without Von Miller. So I think they'll try to make a play for him. But you know where I eventually want to go with this. Will Von Miller return to my Broncos? If he did, Denver would essentially net a 2nd and 3rd round pick for a half-season rental. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. No one on this coaching staff really has any ties to Von anymore, and George Paton is the one that traded him in the first place. And Von is 33. This would be Von's first chance to hit free agency in his entire career, so I think he deserves to enjoy the process and get the most money possible before he has to retire. Von is best suited for the bright lights, so I think he ends up in New York as a Giant, helping rebuild the team that could turn around quickly under Brian Daboll. I love Von Miller and I truly want what's best for him, so maybe Buffalo can swoop in and land him instead. Come on, Bills, go get Von. Chris Godwin is our next free agent. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have 2 players they could tag, receiver Chris Godwin or center Ryan Jensen. This situation is interesting because they used the tag on Godwin last year, and then he tore his ACL. I believe receivers are easier to find than centers as good as Ryan Jensen, and Tampa could go after a receiver that will be healthy this season. Godwin could work out a long-term deal though with Tampa. He says he'd like to return, but using the tag on a guy with a torn ACL seems unlikely in my opinion. Chris Godwin, like his teammate Mike Evans, is a rare superstar receiver that doesn't have much of an ego. I think that could attract a team like New England, who could stand to upgrade at wide receiver and pick up a true number 1 in Godwin. Godwin has gotten used to playing with a noodle-armed quarterback the last few years, so I think moving from Tom Brady to Mac Jones is a natural progression. I also think he sees the writing on the wall in Tampa, knowing that replacing Brady is going to be a longer process than he may want to see through, and who knows how long Bruce Arians will keep being a head coach. But you never know, Tampa could re-sign Jameis Winston, and Chris Godwin could see another chance to put up 1,300 yards like in the good old days of 2019. And finally, I got Odell Beckham Jr. Like Von Miller, I think after winning a championship, Odell Beckham is ready to test free agency for the first time in his career. He tore his ACL though, which makes it complicated. Beckham had a serious renaissance in LA after scratching and clawing his way out of Cleveland, and I think that experience has made him realize how important it is to play with the right quarterback. And sadly, I think that quarterback might be Patrick Mahomes. OBJ will become a true number 2 in Kansas City opposite Tyreek Hill, and I think they'll form a receiving trio with Travis Kelce that keeps KC in the thick of the AFC next year, and Beckham will return for KC in the postseason, being a key reason they get back to the Super Bowl. I think Beckham needs to go to a place that can afford the time to wait for him to recover from his ACL injury. Now, I will also note that Every big name free agent wide receiver over the last 3 years has been linked to KC, and it never seems to happen for whatever reason, but the Chiefs will be aggressive and get it done. Please, again, subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can check out another video. I got one up on the screen right now. That video is YouTube's best for viewer video. Was it really the best video for you, the viewer?